Good morning, brethren, and welcome to our bi-weekly program entitled The Word in a Glimpse, which is broadcast live on Facebook every Monday and every Wednesday at 8 a.m. West Africa time, which is 7 a.m. GMT. Today is Monday, the 14th of August, 2023, and our topic this morning is entitled Spiritual Danger of Physical Exhaustion. Spiritual Danger of Physical Exhaustion, Part 3. Yes, we started this teaching on Monday, the 7th of August, and we already saw two parts. And today is part 3 of the teaching. You remember we have been talking of Elijah. We saw how on the day of his contest with the prophets of Baal, Elijah walked from Jezreel to Mount Carmel. Of course, he went on foot. He didn't use a horse. He didn't use a donkey or any other means of transportation in those times. He didn't use any chariot. He walked on foot from Jezreel to Mount Carmel. And when he arrived there, he had to talk to the people who were already gathered there, who have already gathered there. He didn't use any microphone. There was no microphone in those times. So he had to shout. He had to lecture them about faltering uh, between two opinions, faltering between Baal and God Almighty. And he had, of course, to shout very loudly for them to hear him, because there were many. And after that, he had to build an altar. He built an altar. He had to gather stones himself. They were not pebbles. They were not very little stones. They were big stones, because he had to build an altar. So he had to gather big stones, put them firmly on the ground, arrange them very well, and there were 12 big stones that he had to use. And after that, he had to arrange wood on those stones. He had to put wood in a certain order. He had to arrange them on the stones, to make a good altar. After that, he had to prepare a bull for the offering, because there were two bulls. The prophets of Baal, who were 450, could prepare that bull without much fatigue. But he was all alone, and he has to do it himself. So he had to cut the bull in pieces and arrange those pieces on the altar, which he did. And after he arranged the pieces of the bull on the altar, he asked the people to pour water on the bull, on the wood, on the stones. And before that, he himself dug. He dug a trench, a large trench, all around the altar, and the people had to fill that trench with water. And after that, he prayed. He prayed for God to send fire from heaven, and fire came down from heaven and burned the sacrifice, which was the object of the contest, to see who would answer with fire coming down from heaven and burning the offering. So when after that, he didn't stop there. He asked the people to seize all the 450 prophets of Baal, which they did. And he himself slaughtered all those 450 prophets of Baal. He killed them himself. He cut off their throats with a knife himself. It was a knife or a machete, I don't know what he used, or a cutlass. But the fact is that he did it himself. So he cut the throat of those 450 prophets of Baal himself. All this that we have seen was already very, very tiring, very exhausting. But he didn't stop there. After the killing, after the slaughter of the 450 prophets of Baal, he still climbed up Mount Carmel to the top. He went to the top of Mount Carmel. He climbed up to the top of Mount Carmel, where he prayed for God to send the rain. All that was tiring. And not only that, but when God answered that prayer, when God decided to send the rain, Elijah had to go back to Jezreel. He asked his servant to tell Ahab to go to go into his chariot and ride to Jezreel, ride very fast to Jezreel so that he will not be caught by the rain. But we know that he was caught by the rain anyway, but that's a different matter. Anyway, Elijah, he didn't have any horse, he didn't have any donkey, he didn't have any chariot, but he also had to run back to Jezreel. And he ran faster than the chariot of Ahab, of King Ahab. He ran past King Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. So he ran very, very fast. We all know how running is exhausting. He was already exhausted, but he still ran very, very fast, which increased his exhaustion, his physical exhaustion. So when Elijah reached Jezreel, he was exhausted. He was very, very exhausted. Let's now read 1 Kings chapter 19. 1 Kings chapter 19. Let's read verses 1 to 4. 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 1 to 4. Let's read. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, also how he had executed all the prophets with the sword. Okay, now we know that he used a sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, So let the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And when he saw that, he arose and ran for his life, and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a broom tree, and he prayed that he might die, and said, It is enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. Okay, let's read again so we'll understand very well what is going on. Sorry. It is 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 1 to 4. Sorry. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, also how he had executed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, So let the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And when he saw that, he arose and ran for his life, and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he prayed that he might die, and said, It is enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. So we see, as we said, Elijah had not had any rest when he received a messenger from Jezebel. He went down to Jezreel from Mount Carmel. He ran down to Jezreel, and he went to his house. While he was in his house, while he wanted to rest, he received a messenger from Jezebel. And that messenger told him that Jezebel promised him death on the next day. Jezebel was King Ahab's wife. So Jezebel told him that on the next day, she would have killed him, or she would have him killed, as he, Elijah, had killed the prophets of Baal. So Elijah was so exhausted that he failed to think wisely. That was the first consequence of his exhaustion. He could not think wisely. If he ever thought wisely, he would think that Jezebel, in fact, had no intention to kill him. She instead was afraid of him, and she wanted him to be very far from Jezreel, very far from where she was, because she was afraid of him. So with all the anger that she had after the slaughter of all her prophets of Baal, 450 prophets of Baal who were eating at her table, whom she was protecting. After that, all that anger, she wouldn't have sent a messenger to Elijah, a warning, giving him a warning message, telling him that she will kill him, promising him death. She would instead have sent him killers to take off his life right away, to kill him right away. She wouldn't have sent anybody to tell him, I will kill you. No, she would send people to kill him. The fact that she sent people to warn him, to tell him that she will kill him, meant that she had no intention to kill him. She was only afraid of him, and she wanted him to go far from where she was staying. But because of his great fatigue, because of his physical exhaustion, Elijah was not able to have this kind of reasoning. Elijah was not able to think wisely. Thus, Elijah fully believed Jezebel's words and he ran for his life. So you see, physical exhaustion darkens our mind and it prevents us from reasoning wisely. Physical exhaustion makes us dumb and dull. It actually makes us miserably dumb. Elijah could call on God and ask fire to come down from heaven and destroy the messengers, as he did later on with the captains of 50 and the 50 men whom King Ahab or King Ahaziah sent to him. Yet he didn't do it. He didn't think of God. When he received Jezebel's messengers, or Jezebel's messenger, he didn't think of God at all. He only stood up and ran for his life. You see, if Elijah had prayed God to send fire and destroy the messenger, Jezebel would would have been scared forever. And she wouldn't have done anything back again in Israel, I think, as long as Elijah would be in Jezreel where she was living. Yet, instead of doing that, instead of calling on God, instead of praying to God, Elijah fled. This means that Elijah wasn't certain that God could rescue him in the improbable case that Jezebel would send people to kill him. Elijah doubted the power and the authority of God. The fact that he fled shows that he doubted the power and authority of God, or at least he was no more aware of the power and the authority of God Almighty. That is why he fled. You see, physical exhaustion makes us doubt the power and authority of God. Physical exhaustion makes us lose confidence in the capacity of God to protect us. Physical exhaustion may make us lose our trust in God. Physical exhaustion wipes away our faith in God. This is what happened on that day. Now Elijah was fleeing for his life. He fled from Jezebel because he didn't want to die. Since Jezebel told him that he would kill him, he was fleeing from Jezebel because he didn't want to die. So in order not to die, he left Jezreel and went past Beersheba into the wilderness. And there, what did he do? In the wilderness, he sat down under a broom tree and asked for death. He asked God to take his life. You see the contradiction here. He left Jezreel because he didn't want to die. But now, out of Jezreel, he wants to die. What a contradiction. So there was total confusion in Elijah's mind. What did he actually want? Did he actually want to die or not to die? Physical exhaustion had brought confusion in Elijah's mind. This means that physical exhaustion is likely to bring confusion into our mind. It is likely to confuse us. We are then unable to think clearly, to think wisely, to clearly know what we actually want or what we actually have to do. With physical exhaustion, we can find ourselves doing exactly the opposite of what we are supposed to actually do. Physical exhaustion brings confusion in our mind. Elijah ran, he fled Jezreel because he didn't want to die. But on that same evening, on that same night, he asked for death. He wanted to die. It is a contradiction. It is total confusion. So there was total confusion in Elijah's mind. This is one of the greatest dangers of physical exhaustion. It sends a spirit of confusion in man's mind. Dear brethren, we're going to stop here this morning, and we will continue with this same teaching on Wednesday, the 16th of August. I hope By then, we will avoid physical exhaustion so that we would avoid confusion in our minds. God bless you abundantly beyond all your expectations and have a very wonderful week.